Sit your nappy-headed self down before I handle it for you. Mrs. Evelyn Granger's voice sliced through the classroom as she yanked Nia Robinson out of her chair, fingers digging into her scalp. You people are always testing boundaries, she sneered, tugging Nia's hair back hard enough to make her eyes water. The scissors flashed. Snip! A thick lock of hair fell to the linoleum. Gasps erupted. Now you look presentable, Granger said. Nia didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stared straight ahead, jaw locked, memorizing every second. Mrs. Granger had no idea she'd just committed a crime against the one student whose last name could end her career forever. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. The morning bell's shrill ring echoed through Jefferson High School's hallways. Nia Robinson settled into her usual seat in Mrs. Granger's English class, third row from the front, perfectly centered. She'd chosen this spot carefully months ago, close enough to show engagement, far enough to maintain distance from the teacher's roaming eyes. The classroom hummed with the usual morning energy. Students shuffled papers, whispered about weekend plans, and slouched in their chairs. Mrs. Granger stood at her desk, her perfectly pressed blazer and severe bun presenting the image of authority she carefully cultivated. Today, we'll be discussing the symbolism in Chapter 6 of... Mrs. Granger's voice cut off abruptly. Her eyes had locked onto Nia's hair, a crown of perfectly maintained natural coils that Nia had spent an hour styling that morning. Miss Robinson. The room fell silent. Your hair is a violation of school policy. Nia's hands instinctively rose to her hair, then dropped to her desk. She'd worn this style for months without issue. Mrs. Granger, my hair follows all school guidelines. It's neat and it's unsanitary and disruptive, Mrs. Granger interrupted, her voice sharp enough to make several students flinch. Go to the office immediately. The classroom grew still. Phones appeared under desks, recording discreetly. Nia felt her heartbeat quicken but kept her voice steady. With respect, Mrs. Granger, there's nothing wrong with my hair. I'd like to stay for the lesson. Mrs. Granger's face flushed red. She strode to her desk, yanking open the top drawer. This kind of defiance will not be tolerated in my classroom. The metallic gleam of scissors caught the fluorescent lights as she approached Nia's desk. Several students gasped. Marcus Johnson, 2 seats over, whispered, Mrs. G, come on. Silence! Mrs. Granger snapped. She loomed over Nia's desk. If you won't follow rules willingly, I'll help you comply. Before anyone could react, the scissors flashed. A thick section of Nia's carefully maintained hair fell onto her open notebook. The sound of the cut seemed to echo in the frozen classroom. More phones emerged openly now, recording the unthinkable scene. Sarah Martinez in the front row had her hand pressed against her mouth. David half rose from his seat, then sank back down when Mrs. Granger shot him a warning glare. Nia didn't scream. She didn't cry. Years of her mother's lessons echoed in her mind. Never let them see you break. She stared directly into Mrs. Granger's eyes, refusing to look away. The teacher's triumphant expression faltered slightly at Nia's unwavering gaze. The severed hair lay between them like evidence at a crime scene. Nia could smell the coconut oil she'd worked through her coils that morning. Her scalp stung where the hair had been roughly cut. Mrs. Granger stepped back, scissors still in hand. Perhaps now you'll learn to present yourself appropriately in my classroom. The silence stretched, heavy and horrible. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The clock on the wall seemed frozen, its tick lost in the tension. Running footsteps in the hall broke the spell. Ms. Patterson, the guidance aide, burst through the door, her face alarmed. What's happening? We got calls. She stopped short, taking in the scene. Mrs. Granger with scissors, Nia's mutilated hair, The sea of phones pointed their way. Oh my God. Nia slowly gathered her belongings, movements careful and controlled. She picked up the cut hair from her notebook, cradling it in her palm like something precious and broken. The hair her grandmother had taught her to love, that her mother had helped her style through years of learning self-acceptance, that had survived 100 small battles until today. As she stood, her classmates seemed to lean away, as if her humiliation might be contagious. Their eyes followed her, full of pity and discomfort. Some looked down at their phones, already sending the video evidence into the digital world. Ms. Patterson reached for her arm. Nia, honey. Nia walked past her, back straight, chin high. The hallway stretched before her like a gauntlet. Other students stopped to stare, whispers following in her wake. The cut hair felt heavy in her palm, heavier than it should. Each step echoed against the lockers. Each face that turned to watch her pass burned like a brand. But Nia kept walking, her mother's voice steady in her head. Your dignity is armor they can't pierce. The weight of dozens of eyes pressed against her back. The morning sun through the hallway windows felt too bright, too exposing. But Nia didn't run. She didn't hide. She walked with the measured pace of someone who refused to be chased from their own space. In her palm, the severed hair carried the weight of more than just this morning. It carried the weight of every dress code violation, every attitude problem, every time Mrs. Granger had singled her out while praising white students for the same actions. It carried the weight of countless small cuts that had led to this final, unforgivable one. The hallway seemed endless, each step a small eternity. But Nia kept walking, the cut hair clutched carefully in her hand, holding on to her dignity like a shield against the stares and whispers that followed her path. The fluorescent lights in Principal Klein's office buzzed like angry wasps. Nia sat perfectly straight in the hard plastic chair, the cut hair still cradled in her lap. Saz. Granger perched in the chair beside her, hands folded primly, while Principal Klein's leather chair creaked as he leaned forward over his desk. This is a very serious situation, Klein began, his voice carrying the rehearsed weight of administrative authority. Mrs. Granger, please explain what happened in your classroom. Mrs. Granger's voice quavered with manufactured distress. Principal Klein, I was simply trying to maintain order. Miss Robinson has shown a pattern of defiance. When I asked her to comply with school dress code, she became confrontational. I felt threatened. Nia's head snapped up. That's not true. Please don't interrupt, Miss Robinson. Klein cut her off without looking at her. Continue, Mrs. Granger. Her aggressive response left me no choice. Mrs. Granger dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I've never felt so intimidated by a student. I was merely trying to enforce school policy. Principal Klein nodded sympathetically. I understand. And your record here at Jefferson has been exemplary. He shuffled some papers on his desk, finally turning his attention to Nia. Miss Robinson, this kind of disruptive behavior cannot be tolerated. Disruptive? Nia's voice remained steady despite the anger burning in her chest. She cut my hair without permission. There are videos. About those videos, Klein interrupted again. All phones involved in recording the incident are being confiscated. Recording in classrooms violates school policy. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Ms. Reeves, please begin collecting the phones from Mrs. Granger's first period class. Through the office's glass windows, Nia watched the secretary hurry down the hall. Already, she could see students being pulled from other classes, their phones taken away. The videos need to be deleted, Mrs. Granger insisted. They don't show the full context. They show exactly what happened, Nia said firmly. You had no right. That's enough, Klein's voice sharpened. Your continued defiance only proves Mrs. Granger's point. You're suspended for 5 days for insubordination and creating a hostile classroom environment. The injustice of it struck Nia like a physical blow. She assaulted me. She cut my hair without... I will not have you making false accusations against a respected teacher. Klein's tone was final. Mrs. Granger will take a brief paid leave while we review the incident. You, however, need to leave campus immediately. Outside the office, Nia could see students gathering, whispering behind their hands. Through the glass, she caught fragments. Must have pushed her. Asking for trouble. Had an attitude. The story was already being rewritten. She watched truth dissolve in real time, replaced by a more comfortable narrative. Mrs. Granger stood, straightening her blazer. I hope you'll use this time to reflect on your choices, Miss Robinson. Her voice dripped with false concern. I only want what's best for all my students. Nia's hands tightened around the cut hair in her lap. The same hands that had never raised in threat, never pushed or shoved, never done anything but turn pages and take notes in this woman's class. Principal Klein was already writing out her suspension slip. Security will escort you to collect your things. Your parents will be notified. He didn't look up as he signed the paper. We'll need you to turn in your phone as well. Nia handed over her phone, knowing any evidence she might have had was already being systematically erased. A security guard appeared at the door, Mr. Torres, who had always smiled at her before. Now he looked through her like she was a stranger. As she walked to her locker, flanked by security, Nia noticed how efficiently the system moved to protect itself. Teachers quickly pulled students into classrooms, closing doors as she passed. The counselor who had praised her college essays last week turned down a different hallway to avoid eye contact. The worst part was the speed of it all. How quickly everyone accepted the new reality, where she was the threat, the problem, the one who needed to be removed. Mrs. Granger's act of violence was already being cleaned up, smoothed over, justified. Mr. Torres stood watching as she gathered her books. Hurry it up, he said, checking his watch. The same watch he'd shown her proudly last month, a gift from his daughter. Nia moved deliberately, refusing to rush. She packed each book carefully, organized her papers, made sure everything was in its place. Small acts of order in the midst of chaos. The halls were empty now, her footsteps echoing against the lockers. Through classroom windows, she caught glimpses of students watching, their phones conspicuously absent from their desks. The morning's violence was already being erased, digitally and socially. Missed you. Torres led her to the front entrance, holding the door open with mechanical courtesy. Wait for your ride here, he instructed, then retreated inside, leaving her alone on the steps. Nia sat down, her backpack heavy beside her. The cut hair was now carefully wrapped in a tissue in her pocket, preserved as evidence, though she wondered if anyone would ever ask to see it. The late morning sun beat down on the empty steps. She watched as a group of administrators huddled near a window, their faces serious as they no doubt crafted the official story. Mrs. Granger's car was still in her reserved spot, untouched, protected. A student passed by with a hall pass, carefully avoiding Nia's eyes. Time stretched like taffy as Nia waited, the school functioning normally behind her as if nothing had happened. No one came to check on her. No one asked if she was okay. No one apologized. The building hummed with the sound of learning continuing without her. When her mother's familiar car finally appeared in the distance, Nia stood up slowly. Her legs felt wooden, her body heavy with the weight of understanding. This hadn't been a mistake or a momentary loss of control. This had been permission. Permission granted long ago, and finally acted upon. The kitchen timer ticked steadily as Angela Robinson stirred a pot of soup she knew no one would eat. Steam rose in lazy spirals, while Nia sat motionless at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. The silence between them felt physical, like a wall neither knew how to break through. Angela had picked Nia up hours ago, but her daughter hadn't spoken more than 2 words since getting in the car. Now the afternoon light was fading, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor. "Baby," Angela said softly, turning down the heat under the pot. "Talk to me." Nia's hands moved slowly to her pocket. She withdrew a tissue-wrapped bundle and placed it on the table between them. Her fingers trembled as she carefully unfolded the tissue, revealing the thick coil of cut hair. Angela's wooden spoon clattered against the stovetop. She moved to the table, pulling out a chair close to her daughter. "Oh, baby." She reached for the hair but stopped short, her hand hovering. "May I?" Nia nodded. Angela lifted the section of hair with the reverence of handling evidence, which, she realized with a surge of anger, was exactly what it was. "Wait," Angela said. She went to the drawer where they kept plastic bags and returned with a clean ziplock. With careful movements, she transferred the hair into the bag and sealed it. "We're keeping this safe." The back door opened, and Judge Elijah Robinson entered, still in his court robes. One look at the kitchen tableau, his wife and daughter at the table, the bagged hair between them, and his usual warm smile vanished. "What happened?" His voice was quiet, but carried the weight of approaching thunder. Nia's composure finally cracked. Her shoulders began to shake as she described the morning's events. Mrs. Granger stopping class, the accusations, the scissors. Through her tears, she detailed the principal's office, the phones being taken, the suspension. Elijah pulled out a chair and sat, his robes settling around him. He didn't interrupt, didn't react visibly. Only his hands, clasped tightly on the table, betrayed his tension. When Nia finished, he asked, "What time exactly did Mrs. Granger stop the class?" 9:17, Nia said. "I remember looking at the clock when she first called me out." "Who was sitting closest to you?" "Marcus Williams and Tara Smith," Nia said. "But they won't say anything. Nobody will." "Were there any other adults present when it happened?" "No. Ms. Peters, the guidance aide, came in after, but she didn't see." "Has Mrs. Granger targeted you before?" Nia hesitated. Angela reached over and squeezed her hand. "Tell him everything, baby." "It started small," Nia said. "She'd call me out for talking when other students were louder. Said I had an attitude whenever I answered questions. Last month she moved my seat to the back corner, away from everyone else. She wrote Nia up 3 times for disruptive behavior," Angela added. She stood and went to a kitchen drawer, pulling out a folder. "I kept copies of everything. The write-ups, the emails she sent, notes about every incident." Elijah nodded approvingly as Angela spread the documentation on the table. "This is good," he said. "Very good." "I should have said something sooner," Nia whispered. "No, baby," Angela said fiercely. "You did exactly right. You stayed strong, stayed dignified, and we kept records. That's exactly what we taught you to do." Elijah studied one of the write-ups. "Schools like Jefferson count on families getting tired," he explained. "They expect either silence or loud, directionless anger they can dismiss. They're not prepared for sustained strategic pressure." He looked up at his daughter. "This is going to get worse before it gets better. The school will close ranks. They'll try to paint you as the problem. Your friends might distance themselves. Are you ready for that?" Nia straightened in her chair. "Yes, sir." "We'll need to be careful," he continued. "Methodical. They'll be watching for mistakes. Everything we do must be precise and documented." Angela moved back to the stove, turning it off. The soup had gone cold. "They think because we're not out there screaming and protesting that they've won," she said. "They have no idea what's coming." "My robe," Elijah said suddenly. "Nia, help me with it." Nia stood and helped her father remove his judicial robe. As she hung it carefully on its designated hook by the kitchen door, Elijah's voice carried in the dim kitchen. They chose the wrong child. Morning sunlight glinted off the news van's satellite dishes as they lined Jefferson High's main entrance. Camera crews adjusted their equipment while reporters checked their makeup in handheld mirrors. The school's flagpole cast a long shadow across the gathering crowd. Inside the school's library, hastily converted into a press room, District Superintendent Martha Walsh stood at a podium flanked by security guards. The room buzzed with whispered conversations and clicking cameras. "Before we begin," Walsh announced, "I'd like to introduce Catherine Reeves, legal counsel for Mrs. Granger." A sharp-featured woman in an expensive suit took the podium. Her voice carried clearly through the microphones. "Mrs. Granger has served this district with distinction for 15 years. Yesterday's incident, while regrettable, occurred only after repeated attempts to address ongoing behavioral issues." She shuffled her papers with manicured hands. "My client felt physically threatened when the student refused multiple direct instructions. The minimal contact made was purely defensive and within established guidelines for classroom management." Angela Robinson watched the broadcast from her kitchen, her coffee growing cold. Her phone buzzed with another anonymous call, the fifth since dawn. She let it go to voicemail. The superintendent returned to the podium. "After careful review, we've determined this situation stemmed from an unfortunate miscommunication regarding our dress code policies. We're implementing additional cultural sensitivity training for all staff members." In the Robinson living room, Nia sat cross-legged on the couch, watching comments scroll across social media. If she just followed the rules, this wouldn't have happened. These kids need to learn respect. Teacher was probably scared for her life. Her phone chimed with a text from her best friend Jasmine. "My mom says I can't talk to you anymore. I'm so sorry." At the federal courthouse, Judge Robinson sat in his chambers reviewing case files when his colleague Judge Michael Patterson knocked on the door. "Eli," Patterson said, closing the door behind him. "Got a minute?" Elijah gestured to a chair. Patterson settled in, looking uncomfortable. "Look, I heard about what happened with your daughter. Terrible business. But some of the old guard are concerned about how this might play out." "Are they?" Elijah's voice was neutral. "You know how delicate these appointments can be. Your name's been floated for the appeals court. Would hate to see complications arise." "Thank you for your concern, Michael." Elijah's tone made it clear the conversation was over. At 2:15 p.m., Angela's phone rang. This time it was Principal Klein. "Mrs. Robinson, after reviewing yesterday's events and speaking with our security team, we've decided to extend Nia's suspension. Additionally, we're transferring her to our alternative learning center for the remainder of the semester." "On what grounds?" Angela's voice was steel. "Safety concerns, for all parties involved." Klein's voice dripped with fake sympathy. "We want to ensure everyone feels secure in their learning environment." "You mean Mrs. Granger's learning environment? I understand you're upset, but this decision is final. The transfer paperwork will be emailed shortly." Angela hung up and immediately called their family lawyer, Raymond Tucker. His secretary put her straight through. "They're moving fast," Tucker said after hearing the update. "Isolating her, controlling the narrative. Classic institutional defense strategy." "Elijah's filing the civil rights complaint tonight," Angela replied. "Good. Document everything. Every call, every email. And Angela, watch your backs. This kind of thing can get ugly fast." The afternoon crept by. More news vans arrived. Online comments grew increasingly hostile. Angela installed a security camera after the third car drove slowly past their house. At 6:45 p.m., Judge Robinson sat at his home office desk, carefully reviewing the civil rights complaint form. Every detail had to be perfect. He knew from experience how systems protected themselves. Any small error would be used to discredit the whole claim. His phone buzzed. Another anonymous number. He answered it this time. "You really want to throw away your career over this?" A digitally altered voice asked. "Back off now. Everything goes back to normal." Elijah said nothing, simply ended the call and added it to his documentation. At 7:30 p.m., he submitted the formal complaint to the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. The confirmation email arrived moments later. Case number OCR 2023-1114. Upstairs, Nia stood in her bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The damage was obvious now. A jagged gap in her carefully maintained natural hair, the cut edges rough and uneven. She touched the spot gently, remembering the sound of the scissors, the feeling of cold metal against her scalp. But something had changed since yesterday. The shame that had burned so hot was cooling, hardening into something else. Her father's words echoed, "They chose the wrong child." In the mirror, her eyes were no longer those of a victim. Mrs. Granger had tried to break her spirit by attacking her crown. Instead, she'd awakened something stronger. Nia's phone buzzed with another hateful comment notification. She deleted the social media apps without opening them. Let them talk. Let them lie. Let them try to paint her as the aggressor. The truth was in the cut hair, carefully preserved in its plastic bag. The truth was in her mother's meticulous records. The truth was in her father's steady hands as he filed complaints that would echo through corridors of power. They thought they were dealing with a helpless student they could bully into submission. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Nia squared her shoulders and took one last look in the mirror. Tomorrow, she would hold her head high. Let them see what they'd done. Let them see she wasn't backing down. Her reflection stared back, proud and unflinching, the uneven hair a battle scar she would wear like armor. The alternative school's intake office smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. At 7:15 a.m., Nia sat in a hard plastic chair, a stack of forms on the metal desk before her. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, making the beige walls look even more lifeless. Mrs. Peters, the intake coordinator, watched Nia with barely concealed suspicion. "Initial here, here, and here," she said, pointing at various spots on the forms. "These acknowledge your disciplinary status and agreement to follow our strict behavioral guidelines." Nia's hand moved mechanically across the papers. Each signature felt like another small defeat. Through the office's clouded windows, she could see other students arriving, most looking defeated, some openly hostile. "Your schedule," Mrs. Peters slid another paper across the desk. "You'll be in room 103 for all subjects. No moving between classes. Lunch is brought to you. Bathroom breaks only with an escort." The message was clear. This wasn't school. This was containment. Across town, in a corner booth at Murphy's Diner, Judge Robinson sat with civil rights attorney Denise Holloway. Steam rose from their untouched coffee cups as they spoke in low voices. "Multiple violations," Denise said, spreading documents across the table. "Assault, discrimination, evidence tampering, retaliatory transfer. But here's what concerns me most: the speed of their response." "This level of institutional coordination suggests practice." Elijah nodded. "They've done this before." "And buried it successfully." Denise leaned forward. "The phone confiscation alone is illegal. Add the coerced deletions of student videos, and we're looking at systematic suppression of evidence." "They're scared," Elijah observed. "They should be. But, Judge—" Denise hesitated. "They're also connected. The superintendent's brother sits on the state education board. Granger's husband is law partners with the mayor's chief of staff. This won't be a clean fight." At Jefferson High, Angela Robinson walked through the main entrance, carrying a box of Nia's remaining items from her locker. A custodian watched her from the end of the hallway, nervously gripping his broom. As she passed him, he spoke barely above a whisper. "Ma'am? There's cameras in this hall. They record everything." Angela slowed, but didn't turn around. "Security office, behind the cafeteria. Digital system, keeps 30 days of footage." His voice shook slightly. "But sometimes things get deleted. Accidentally." She gave a slight nod and continued walking. By early afternoon, social media exploded with breaking news. Mrs. Granger had resigned. The district's press release praised her 15 years of dedicated service and wished her well in future endeavors. Comments flooded in supporting her difficult but necessary decision to leave an increasingly hostile environment. In her office, Denise Holloway watched the announcement with growing excitement. She reached for her phone to call Judge Robinson, but found he was already calling her. "This is it," she said quickly. "We can move now while they're disorganized. I can have—" "No." Elijah's voice was calm. "We wait. But she's running. If we don't act—" "She's not running. She's hiding. And they're not disorganized. They're following a plan." Elijah's tone remained measured. "Let them think it worked. Let them relax. When people feel safe, they get sloppy." Denise started to argue but stopped. This was why she'd taken the case. Not just for justice, but to learn from someone who understood how power truly worked. At the alternative school, Nia sat alone in room 103. The teacher, Mr. Barnes, barely looked up from his phone as students completed generic worksheets. No discussion, no engagement, no learning, just compliance and silence. A girl 2 seats away passed Nia a note. "What did you do to get sent here?" Nia wrote back, "Existed too loudly." The girl read it and gave a sad, knowing nod. That evening, the Robinson family sat around their dining room table. Angela had made Nia's favorite, honey-glazed salmon with roasted vegetables. The news played quietly in the background, showing clips of supporters gathering outside Jefferson High, with signs supporting Mrs. Granger. "They're calling it a victory," Nia said, pushing food around her plate, "like she's the victim who had to quit because of us." "Let them," Elijah replied, his voice carrying the same calm certainty he used in court. "This stopped being about school the moment she touched you. This is about accountability now." "What does that mean?" Nia asked. "It means we're not fighting for an apology or for you to return to Jefferson. We're fighting to ensure there are consequences, real ones, not just a quiet resignation and a job at another school." Angela reached over and squeezed Nia's hand. "Baby, sometimes justice looks like defeat at first. That's how they get people to give up. But we're not giving up. The more they celebrate now," Elijah added, "the harder they'll fall later. Every tweet defending her, every statement praising her, every supporter holding those signs, they're just building the evidence of institutional protection. And that's exactly what we need." Nia looked at her father. In court robes, he was an imposing figure of authority. But here, in his home clothes, speaking quietly over dinner, she saw something else. The careful precision of a man who knew exactly how to dismantle systems from within. The TV continued to show crowds supporting Granger, their voices full of righteous indignation. But in the Robinson dining room, there was only calm certainty. They had the truth, they had the evidence, and most importantly, they had patience. The morning sun filtered through the Robinsons' living room windows as Nia set up her laptop on the coffee table. The news played at low volume, background noise she couldn't completely ignore. Her hair, now unevenly cropped on one side, was pulled back with a headband, a temporary solution to a permanent violation. "Breaking news from Jefferson High School," the anchor announced. Former teacher Mrs. Evelyn Granger speaks out for the first time since her resignation. Nia's fingers froze over the keyboard. On screen, Mrs. Granger sat in a softly lit studio, wearing a conservative blue blazer, her face a mask of practiced vulnerability. I've dedicated my life to teaching, Granger's voice trembled perfectly. But the climate of hostility and intimidation made it impossible to maintain classroom discipline. I feared for my safety. Angela Robinson emerged from the kitchen, dish towel still in hand. Turn that garbage off. No, Nia said quietly. I need to hear what she's saying about me. Granger continued, dabbing at dry eyes. When students repeatedly refuse to follow basic rules, when they become confrontational. She paused for effect. We teachers are put in impossible situations. The real victims here are the other students whose education is disrupted. Nia's phone buzzed. Messages flooded her social media, some from former classmates' parents. We always knew you were trouble. Poor Mrs. Granger. You should be ashamed. Making up lies about a respected teacher. Angela snatched the phone away. That's enough of that. She blocked several numbers before returning it. The doorbell rang. Through the front window they saw a delivery person leaving a thick manila envelope on the porch. Inside was a printout of an email chain circulating among Jefferson High parents. It contained Nia's complete disciplinary record. Tardiness from 7th grade, a detention for talking back in 9th, a dress code violation from last semester. They're trying to paint a picture, Angela said, scanning the documents. Build a pattern that never existed. Nia stared at the papers. How did they even get these? Illegally, Angela replied. And we're documenting everything. At the federal courthouse, Judge Robinson sat in his chambers reviewing cases when his clerk entered with a troubled expression. Sir, the State Judicial Ethics Board just received a complaint. They're questioning your impartiality regarding Jefferson High School matters. Elijah accepted the paper without changing expression. The complaint alleged he was using his position to wage a personal vendetta and should recuse himself from any cases involving local education. Interesting timing, he noted calmly, adding it to his growing file. His phone buzzed. A text from a fellow judge. Careful, Elijah. People are asking questions about your daughter's history. Don't let this define your legacy. In her downtown office, Denise Holloway was burning through phone lines. I don't care what time the clerk leaves. I need those preservation orders filed today. Every email, every security log, every piece of footage from the past 6 months. She hung up and immediately dialed Angela. They're moving faster than expected. 3 more parents have come forward claiming Nia threatened their children. All dated conveniently before the incident. All reporting it now. They're building a defense, Angela said. More like a fortress, but they're being sloppy. The timestamps on these complaints don't match the school's visitor logs. They're creating evidence that contradicts their own records. Angela watched through her window as another unfamiliar car drove slowly past their house. Same car. 3rd time today. They're watching us, Denise. Document everything. License plates, times, photos, if you can safely get them. By afternoon, Jefferson High released a brief statement about technical difficulties with their security system. Due to an unexpected camera malfunction, some footage from the past month may be unavailable for review. Angela immediately tried calling the janitor who'd tipped her off, straight to voicemail. She tried the school's maintenance office. Sorry, ma'am. He's out on extended leave. Family emergency. The secretary's voice was flat, rehearsed. Nia looked up from her online coursework as another car crawled past their house. Mom, why aren't you angry? They're lying about everything, destroying evidence, threatening Dad's career. Angela sat beside her daughter. Baby, I am angry. I'm furious. But anger isn't a strategy. Your father taught me that. They want us emotional, reactive, making mistakes. So we stay calm, and we document. Every lie they tell is another brick in the wall that's going to fall on them. As evening approached, Judge Robinson's security detail reported unusual activity. Cars following him from the courthouse, photographs being taken of his vehicle. Nothing overtly threatening, but the message was clear. We're watching. Elijah arrived home later than usual, methodically checking each lock on every door and window. The house felt different now. Not the sanctuary it had been, but a fortress under siege. Through the living room window, he watched another slow-moving car pass by, its headlights illuminating family photos on the wall. Snapshots of happier times, when Nia's smile was unguarded and her hair was whole. He drew the curtains closed. The phase of denial was over. Now they'd moved to intimidation, hoping to pressure the family into backing down. But Elijah Robinson hadn't become a federal judge by backing down. He'd gotten there by understanding that justice required more than righteous anger. It required strategic patience. Angela joined him at the window. They think they can wait us out, wear us down. They don't understand what they've started, Elijah replied, double-checking the deadbolt. They think this ends with Nia back at school and Granger at a new job. They don't realize yet. This ends with accountability. The concrete walls of the downtown parking garage amplified every echo, making Angela Robinson jump at each distant footstep. She checked her watch again. 11:15 a.m. Raymond Cole had insisted on meeting here, 3 levels below ground, where security cameras were sparse. She recognized his shuffling gait before she saw him, the careful walk of someone who'd spent decades avoiding attention. Raymond emerged from behind a concrete pillar, still wearing his custodial uniform despite being on leave. Mrs. Robinson. His voice was barely above a whisper. Thank you for coming alone. Angela nodded, noting how his eyes darted between shadows. You're taking a huge risk meeting me. They don't know I made a copy. Raymond pulled a flash drive from his pocket, holding it tight. But they know I saw something. That's why they put me on leave. What exactly did you see, Mr. Cole? Raymond's shoulders tensed. That morning, I was cleaning the hallway outside Granger's room. She came early, before most teachers. She was waiting. He swallowed hard. When your daughter walked in, Granger grabbed her arm, rough, dragged her inside. The security camera caught it all. And the footage disappeared. They said it was a system crash. But I've maintained those cameras for 15 years. They don't just crash. He extended the flash drive with trembling fingers. I copied it that same morning. Something felt wrong. Angela accepted the drive, slipping it into her purse. We can protect you, Mr. Cole. Our lawyer. No. Raymond shook his head firmly. I've got 3 years till retirement. A sick wife. His voice cracked. I couldn't sleep knowing what happened to that girl. But after this, I'm done. Before Angela could respond, footsteps echoed nearby. Raymond disappeared between the cars as quickly as he'd arrived. By early afternoon, Angela sat in Denise Holloway's office, watching the footage on a secure laptop. The video was grainy but clear enough, Granger's aggression apparent in every frame. It's authentic, Denise confirmed, pausing on a particularly damning moment. The metadata matches. This proves premeditation. Can we use it? Legally, yes. But the moment we do, they'll know where it came from. Raymond will be their first target. Denise rubbed her temples. They're already building their counterattack. Angela's phone buzzed. A news alert. Her stomach dropped as she read the headline, Veteran Teacher Announces Defamation Suit Against Student's Family. Denise quickly pulled up the article. Granger's lawyer was quoted extensively. My client's distinguished 20-year career has been destroyed by malicious falsehoods. She suffered severe emotional distress, professional damage, and threats to her safety. We intend to seek substantial damages. They're trying to bankrupt us, Angela realized. It's a common tactic. Make the truth too expensive to tell. Denise's desk phone lit up with incoming calls. And it works. Most families can't afford a prolonged legal battle. We're not most families. No, but Raymond Cole is. 3 hours ago, he was officially terminated. Budget cuts, they're claiming. 15 years of service ended with a form letter. Angela's phone buzzed again. This time, it was Nia. Mom, it's all over social media. They're saying I made everything up for attention. The attacks grew more personal throughout the day. Local media ran profiles of Granger's dedication to students. Former pupils praised her gentle nature. Comments sections filled with speculation about Nia's troubled history and authority issues. By late afternoon, Raymond Cole's termination was being held up as proof of the district's financial struggles. The same district that had just hired 3 new administrative positions. Angela drove home as sunset painted the sky orange, her purse heavy with the flash drive's burden. The truth was there, in cold digital clarity. But truth, she was learning, wasn't enough. Truth needed protection, amplification, and most of all, timing. She found Nia in her room, curtains drawn against the growing dark. Her daughter sat cross-legged on her bed, scrolling through an endless feed of accusations. They're saying I'm destroying her life, Nia said without looking up. That I'm ungrateful, attention-seeking, playing the victim. Angela sat beside her, gently taking the phone. What they're saying doesn't matter. What matters is what we can prove. Mr. Cole lost his job because he tried to help me. Nia's voice cracked. How is that fair? It's not fair. None of this is fair. Angela pulled her daughter close. But fair isn't what we're fighting for anymore. We're fighting for right. Police sirens wailed outside, drawing closer. Nia moved to the window, pulling the curtain back slightly. Red and blue lights strobed across the neighborhood as 3 patrol cars sped past their house. Someone called in a threat at Mrs. Granger's house, Nia said quietly. They're sending protection for her. Angela watched the lights fade into the distance, remembering Raymond Cole's fearful eyes in the parking garage. She thought about the flash drive in her purse, the truth it contained, and the cost of that truth to a man who'd chosen conscience over security. Who protects the truth-tellers? Nia asked, letting the curtain fall back into place. Angela had no answer, as another set of sirens echoed in the gathering dark. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of Denise Holloway's downtown law office, casting long shadows across stacks of documents and legal files. Angela sat beside Nia, their eyes fixed on the large monitor where the security footage played for the 3rd time. Look at her body language, Denise pointed to Granger's rigid posture. She's not reacting to anything. She's waiting. Planning. The footage showed Granger positioned near her classroom door, checking her watch repeatedly. Can we enhance the timestamp? Angela leaned forward. 7:15 a.m., Denise confirmed. 45 minutes before first period. No other teachers were even in the building yet. They watched as Nia appeared on screen, walking normally toward class. In one fluid motion, Granger stepped out, seized Nia's arm, and yanked her inside. The force of the grab made Nia stumble. That's assault, Denise said, pausing the video. Clear as day, and it proves the haircutting wasn't some heat-of-the-moment reaction. She came early specifically to confront you, Nia. For the first time in days, Nia's face showed something other than pain. A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. They can't say I'm lying now. Denise's fingers flew across her keyboard. I'm drafting the filings now. Civil rights violations, assault on a minor, destruction of evidence, conspiracy to cover up. And that's just the beginning. She looked up. I've also contacted some media connections. The right outlet could blow this wide open. Angela squeezed Nia's hand. What about Raymond? We'll need to protect him, Denise admitted. But his testimony combined with this footage. She shook her head. They won't be able to spin their way out of this one. The office phone rang. Denise answered, her expression brightening. Yes, this is she. Yes, we have documentation. Absolutely. We'd welcome your support. She hung up, grinning. The National Education Justice Alliance wants to get involved. They specialize in cases exactly like this. What does that mean? Nia asked. Resources. Media attention. A spotlight so bright the district can't hide anymore. Denise's phone buzzed with incoming messages. And it's already starting. Someone leaked a still from the video on Twitter. It's trending. Angela checked her own phone. The image was everywhere. Granger's grip on Nia's arm. The violence undeniable. Comments flooded in, many from former students sharing similar stories. Mrs. Granger's supporters are panicking, Nia observed, scrolling through responses. They're trying to say the video is fake. Let them, Denise said. We have the original file with metadata. Every denial just makes them look worse. The afternoon stretched into evening as they planned their next moves. Denise coordinated with media contacts while drafting court documents. The National Education Justice Alliance sent preliminary paperwork. For the first time, the momentum felt real. Get some rest, Denise told them as darkness fell. Tomorrow we start pushing back hard. At home, Nia actually ate dinner. Angela caught Elijah almost smiling as he reviewed Denise's draft filings. Even the house felt lighter, as if truth had physically lifted some of the weight pressing down on them. Maybe we can finally sleep, Angela said, as they headed to bed. The peace lasted until 4:47 a.m. Elijah's phone buzzed on the nightstand. A single email from Denise. Emergency. Check your inbox immediately. In his home office, Elijah opened his laptop. The withdrawal notice was brief but devastating. Dear Judge Robinson, it is with deep regret that I must withdraw as counsel in your daughter's case, effective immediately. While I believe completely in the merits of this action, circumstances beyond my control have made it impossible for me to continue representation. My firm's executive committee has informed me that several major clients have threatened to terminate their relationships if we pursue this matter. The potential financial impact would force layoffs among my staff, dedicated people with families who depend on their jobs. I am deeply sorry. The evidence we've gathered remains strong, and I am happy to transfer all materials to new counsel. With sincere apologies, Denise Holloway. Elijah sat motionless as dawn's first light crept through the window. The same light that had seemed so promising yesterday now felt cold and harsh. He heard Angela's footsteps in the hallway. "What's wrong?" she asked from the doorway. He turned the laptop so she could read. Her face fell as she scanned the email. "They got to her firm's clients," Angela whispered. "They're threatening her employees." "It's a common pressure tactic," Elijah said quietly. "Target the lawyer's income, not the case itself. Make justice too expensive to pursue. So what do we do?" Elijah stared at the email as morning light filled the room, casting long shadows across his desk. The weight they'd briefly escaped settled back onto their shoulders, heavier than before. The house stirred as Nia woke up, unaware yet that their momentum had been stripped away overnight. Her footsteps moved from her bedroom to the bathroom, then down toward the kitchen. Normal morning sounds that now felt like echoes of yesterday's hope. Angela watched her husband reading the withdrawal notice again, his expression unreadable in the strengthening sunlight. Outside, birds began their morning songs, oblivious to the machinery of power grinding away at justice in the pre-dawn hours. The grandfather clock in the hall struck 6, its chimes marking the start of another day. But this morning brought no comfort with its light, only the stark reminder that truth alone was never enough against those who wielded influence like a weapon. The late afternoon sky hung heavy and gray over the alternative school, casting dull shadows across cracked concrete. Nia Robinson shifted her weight from one foot to the other at the bus stop, her backpack weighing on her shoulders like armor. The familiar knot in her chest tightened as she checked her phone. 3:47 p.m. 13 minutes until her bus arrived. A sharp laugh cut through the humid air. Nia looked up to see Sarah Matthews, daughter of the main pro-Granger parent group organizer, strutting toward her with two other girls from Jefferson High. Their faces wore the same twisted excitement as their phones came out. "Well, look who it is," Sarah's voice dripped with rehearsed venom. "The girl who ruins lives for attention." Nia took a careful step back, scanning for other students, staff, anyone. The street stretched empty in both directions. "I don't want trouble," Nia said quietly, gripping her backpack strap. "You didn't want trouble?" Sarah's voice rose. "You got Mrs. Granger fired. My mom says you made up lies because you couldn't handle being told what to do. That's not what happened." Nia tried to keep her voice steady. "She cut my hair. She barely touched you." Sarah stepped closer, her friends forming a half circle. "But you had to play victim, didn't you? Had to get your daddy involved?" Nia looked past them toward the school building. No security guards in sight. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm leaving," Nia said, turning to walk away. The shove came from behind, hard and sudden. Nia's feet left the ground for a suspended moment before the pavement rushed up to meet her. Pain exploded through her palms and knees. Her backpack went flying. Before she could roll over, the first punch landed on her shoulder. Then another caught her ribs. Hands grabbed at her jacket, her hair. Through the chaos, phones rose in a circle of onlooker faces, recording everything but helping nothing. "Not so tough now," Sarah's voice cracked with ugly excitement. "Can't hide behind Daddy." Someone yanked Nia's backpack away, contents spilling across the sidewalk. Papers scattered in the wind as sneakers ground her notebook into the concrete. A kick caught her side, driving the air from her lungs. Nia curled inward, protecting her face. The concrete scraped her cheek. Blood roared in her ears, almost drowning out the jeers and laughter. Almost. Distant sirens cut through the noise. The circle of phones wavered, then broke. Footsteps scattered. Nia stayed down, lungs burning as she fought to breathe. "Everyone stay where you are!" a police officer's voice boomed. "Back away from her!" Blue lights strobed against the gray buildings. Car doors slammed. Multiple sets of boots approached on the pavement. "Miss, are you all right? Can you sit up?" Nia pushed herself to her knees, vision swimming. Her palms left bloody smears on the concrete. "I need your name and ID," the officer continued. "Are you enrolled here? Any history of fighting?" "She's the victim," someone in the crowd protested. "I need to establish the facts," the officer said. "There's a note here about prior disciplinary issues." "That's my daughter!" Angela Robinson's voice cut through everything else. She pushed past the police line, dropping to her knees beside Nia. "Baby, what did they do to you?" "Ma'am, we need to question." "Question what?" Angela's fury could have melted steel. "Look at her face. Look at her hands. Where were you when they were attacking her?" "We responded as soon as—" "I want names," Angela demanded.